Hey there drone fans, Rick here again from Drone Valley. In today's video, I'd like to do a complete overview of the brand new Hubsan Zino Mini SE. Now this follows right on the heels of the recently released Zino Mini Pro, which I've covered on the channel a couple of weeks back. And it's interesting because this drone in particular looks an awful lot like the Zino Mini Pro, but it's a lot less expensive and it includes a lot of accessories. And we've had a ton of questions from viewers asking about this particular drone. Now this is the very latest release from Hubsan in the sub 250 gram category, and that category of drones is exploding right now with a lot of companies racing to put out products that weigh less than 250 grams. Now if you're a flyer for any length of time, you know that that's an important weight because under 250 grams in the US at least, you don't have to register your drone, and a lot of people are concerned about that registration. To me, it's not that big a deal. It's $5, you get a couple of years of registration out of it. You can put the same number on all the drones you own, so to me it's not that big a deal, but a lot of people in the US really don't like that registration process. So if you fly a drone that's less than 250 grams, you don't have to worry about registering it with the FAA. Now in other countries, it's a bigger deal because that 250 gram weight limit really makes a difference between taking a test, being able to fly in certain areas, paying insurance. So outside of the US, it's a really, really big deal. But anyway, this category is really interesting to me because trying to build a drone that has sophisticated features in it under 250 grams is a real challenge for a lot of different reasons. Number one, the weight. If I have to pack a lot of technology into a drone, how do I do that and keep the weight down? And then improve the features as well, because competitively, this market has really kind of changed the game as far as what you can do with a smaller drone like this. And again, Hubsan, being a competitor in that space, came out with the Zino Mini Pro first, which had a lot of advanced features for a sub 250 gram drone that had crash avoidance in it, 4K recording time, 40 minutes of flight time. In a lot of ways, it was really kind of the standard for everybody else to chase in this category. Now the Mini SE is sort of a scaled back version of the Mini Pro. And that's a good thing because they took some of the cost out of the equation, but unfortunately when you make a drone less expensive, you pull some of the features out as well. But don't let that fool you. This drone really packs a ton of features in it that you won't find in other drones that are even more expensive. The way I'd like to do this clip is I'll start with an unboxing of the product just to show you all the things that come with the basic kit. And then I'll take a closer look at the drone and the controller and explain some of the things you'll need to know about how to use this drone. And then I'll come back at the end and I'll try and answer the question, is the Hubsan Zino Mini Pro, or I'm sorry, the SE, really worth the money? Now, I've talked about the Pro before. I think that's a phenomenal drone for the money. I recommended that drone. I know I got a lot of heat on the channel from people that, for some reason, don't like Hubsan. And again, I didn't build the drone. All I'm doing is trying to review the product. Let me get into that at the end of the clip. For now, let me start with the unboxing, and then I'll give you a closer look at the components so you understand exactly what you get with the kit. And then I'll come back and do some comparisons briefly between this and other options in that 250 gram category. All right, so let's get started with the unboxing. I normally unbox it in front of you, but there was so much stuff inside this one that I thought, let me just get it on the table and start talking about it. So if you open up the box, you're gonna find the Mini SE, which is a beautiful looking drone, very similar to the Mini Pro as well. If you look at the two frames, this one is white, so it's very easy to see up in the sky. You get a full-size controller. You get 3 connection cables between the controller and your device. Now, it can be a phone, it can be a tablet. The controller has a little drawer that pulls out at the bottom, and that's where you'll put your phone. Now, I haven't come out with a tablet holder for it yet. We're working on one of those, but for now, you can use that, or you can use one of the larger tablet holders. Also included with the kit, which is really important, is 2 batteries. They give you 2 separate batteries, which is unique. They give you a wall charger. You can charge your batteries from there. You also get a charging hub, which is pretty cool. You can plug this into the charger and you can pop 4 batteries around the outside of it, and it'll walk through the batteries one by one and charge them individually. So if you add extra batteries to your kit, you can charge up to 4 of them on that hub in a sequential order. They also include a charging cable. Now, one thing I do want to point out about this drone, and I know people are going to moan about this a little bit, is that most of the drones coming out nowadays are a USB-C standard, which is the latest charging standard and data transfer standard. It's great for fast transfer of data. It's also really good for fast charging a drone. This one is still micro USB. Now, that's not that big a deal to me, quite honestly, because we all have micro USB cables laying around the house, but both the charger and the drone are micro USB connections, so it's important you understand that. Also included with the kit is a spare set of joysticks. These joysticks come off. There's a nice little holder underneath where you can pop them in to fold this thing up nice and small to get it in your bag. You're going to lose those joysticks. I promise you, you're going to lose those joysticks. If you're unscrewing them in the field, and I joke about this, but I've probably lost 20 pairs of joysticks over the years I've been flying. There's no way you're going to be able to hang on to those when you're excited trying to get it set up. You're going to drop them in the grass, they're going to disappear someplace, and you'll never find them. So having extra joysticks is a really big thing. They also include 2 extra sets of propellers, which is really nice, because if you're flying this, sooner or later you're going to run into a tree branch, you're going to hit something, you're going to nick the propellers, and it's nice to have two sets of propellers that are spare that you can use. They also include a screwdriver because most, actually all of the sub 250 gram drones try to save on weight by eliminating that push and turn attachment of the propellers. So all of the smaller drones, up to date anyway, use screws to hold those propellers on. Not that big a deal. It takes an extra 2 minutes to change the propellers, but they include the screwdriver, which is nice. They also include two sets of propellers. And finally, a full instruction manual that tells you everything you need to know about this drone. It's got specifications, startup procedures, how you sync the drone, how you can activate the features. So read through the manual. I always say this, and I know it's a boring exercise to sit down and read something because you want to fly the drone, but the manual gives you a lot of really good information about care and feeding of the drone, how to operate it. And the last thing you want to do is put something this sophisticated up in the air, especially if you're a new flyer, without really understanding all the capabilities of it, because once it's up in the air and it's away from you, scary things might happen out there, and you need to know how to get it back and how to safely fly it and all the things that are, critical about how the drone's performing. And the last thing I'll say, which is really nice, is they include a carrying pouch. Now, when I talk about new drones, especially for flyers that haven't bought a drone before, when you buy a basic kit like this, normally you get the drone, a single battery, maybe you get a charger, maybe you don't, you get the controller and a couple of cables. You don't get a bag, you don't get a charging hub, you don't get a second battery. So as a basic kit, they're including accessories that I promise you're going to end up buying 2 weeks after buying the drone, because when you put it up and it flies, you're going to say, okay, it's flying for 30 minutes, that's great, but then I have to charge the battery again, and I want to fly longer than that, so you're going to buy a second battery. You're definitely going to want a case. You're probably going to look for some type of charging hub so you can charge multiple batteries at the same time. And I think, again, Hubsan with this product could have made it less expensive by not including the battery, the hub, and the case, but they thought about the flyer and said, look, they're going to need a case, they're going to need a second battery, they're probably going to want a charging hub, let's throw those in the kit. So that did raise the price a little bit compared to some of the other sub 250 gram drones, but I think overall as a purchase, it's really nice to have included those products. All right, some basic specs about the drone, which is really what you care about. You want to know how far it can fly, 6 kilometers. Now, again, I always talk about you can't really fly 6 kilometers because you're going to lose sight of it. And in the US, you have to keep your eye on the drone. If it flies out of your visual line of sight, you're breaking the FAA rule. Being white, you can see this quite a bit distance further out than you can from the Zino Mini Pro, which is gray, which kind of blends into the sky. The DJI drones are sort of an off gray as well. Having a white drone means I can see it a lot further, but 6 kilometers also means you're going to have a rock solid signal in close, so that if you're in areas with high interference, whether it be Wi-Fi, microwave ovens, Bluetooth transmitters, radio towers, whatever it is that's crowding that band, you're going to have a rock solid signal between them with a 6 kilometer distance. It records 4K at 30 frames a second. To me, that's unbelievable in a small drone like this. You're putting a really nice camera up in the sky to capture some amazing footage and great pictures. So 4K at 30 frames a second. It can fly for up to 45 minutes. Now, I tested the Zino Mini Pro, which claimed the same thing, and I didn't get quite that long, but I was doing a hover test on it. But I can tell you, having flown that drone for the last 6 or 8 weeks, that Zino Mini Pro gives me a lot longer airtime than any other Mini that I'm flying today. And that's important because you're typically in the air trying to get to a subject that you want to take a photo or a video of. So when you get on target, you want to have as much time as possible to make that perfect shot and record as much footage as possible. So having an extra 5 or 10 minutes of drone flight time in the batteries means you can get to the target and spend more time on that target to capture that perfect picture. So, 35, 40 minutes, 45 minutes with these batteries, even if it's not exactly 45 minutes, it's still longer than any other drone that's flying today. So that's not only a metric of how good the batteries are, but how good the engineering is inside the drone to be able to make it frugal when it's drawing electrons out of that battery to fly that length of time. The last thing I'll talk about it is the intelligence built into the drone, because a lot of these smaller drones, when they were built, especially early versions of the drones, they were happy just to get a drone up in the air they could control at a distance under 250 grams. Then they started building additional features in it. So you saw things like crash avoidance built into the drone with the Zino Mini Pro, follow me mode, which isn't really out there yet in a lot of the drones. Again, Zino Mini Pro there. This one has artificial intelligence for tracking. So you can actually put it up, it'll track you. A lot of the other sub 250 drones don't do that. Another cool feature is this has waypoints built in. So you can actually set waypoints along the way and have it fly to a location and do certain things on that track. A lot of customers are looking for that in their bigger drones, and they want it in their smaller drones as well. Well, the Mini SE's got that. It also has a removable SD card, which is nice. Now, the Zino Mini Pro, for whatever reason, came with internal memory. Even though there was a slot cut into the side of it where you could slide an SD card in, for some reason they never enabled that slot. On the Mini SE, it's there. So what I think about this drone, just an initial impressions, and I haven't flown it yet. I'm going out this afternoon to fly it. I'll have a second clip coming where I talk about the flight characteristics. I'll show you some footage out there in the field. But my first impressions of the drone are that they took the Mini Pro, the Zino Mini Pro, and again, kind of took a lot of the engineering there and figured out how they could make a less expensive drone with the Mini SE, because honestly, there's a lot of flyers that have been thinking about flying a drone for quite some time. A lot of people out there are watching the drone videos thinking, boy, that'd be a whole lot of fun to buy a drone, put it up in the air and capture some amazing footage around my home, but they don't want to spend $700 or $1,000 or $3,000. They're looking for a less expensive drone that has a lot of the features that are in that space. And honestly, this category in a lot of ways has really caught up with the bottom end of that larger drone category with features like crash avoidance and artificial tracking and all the other things that are built into some of the more sophisticated versions. So getting a Mini SE like this that has all the features I've mentioned so far seems like a pretty good deal, especially for new flyers. So stay tuned for the overview, or I should say the closer look next, and then I'll come back at the end and I'll give you that side-by-side comparison, try to explain if this drone is actually worth the price. Now we'll take a closer look at some of the main components that come with the Zino Mini SE, and I'll start with the connection cables between the controller and your device. There are 3 of those included with the kit. There's a micro USB, a USB-C, and an Apple connector on this end. The other end has a micro USB connector on it. And if you look closely, you'll see that on one end, it's got transmitter embossed on the actual connector. On the other end, it says phone. It's really important you keep track of that, because if you're connecting up a device like this one actually, that has a micro USB on both ends, you really have to make sure that you plug the transmitter end into the transmitter, because these are OTG cables, which have a personality, and if you put them in backwards, they won't work. Also included with the kit is a power supply. Now it's interesting that this charger is a fast charger, so it's actually adaptable between 5 volts, 9 volts, and 12 volts, so it can actually fast charge the batteries. Even though the connection is USB-A here to micro USB to the controller in the drone, it will fast charge your device. The batteries are very similar to the Zino Mini Pro. They're 7.2 volt batteries, 3,000 milliampere hours, so they're very powerful batteries. The way you'll turn these on is tap once and tap again. These will strobe up and turn on the battery. They also include a charging hub, which is really clever. It's got a position on 4 sides for batteries. You basically just take the battery, slide it on the top like that, make sure you make the connection, and then when you add power to this unit, it'll check all the batteries to see which one needs the least amount of charge. It'll start charging that. When that's full, it'll move on to the next battery, depending on how many you have. The center will light up initially with the center dot letting you know it's got power, and then the outside dot will point to the battery that's currently charging, and you'll see these lights strobe. Now what's interesting about this is they give you a couple of connections. So the micro USB connection is for plugging it into the charger, but they also have a USB-A connection on here that you can use a second cable with a USB-A from here to a micro USB to the controller and actually charge the controller at the same time. There's also a third charger right here, and I'm not sure exactly what that's for. I should say a third port. I imagine that would be for other power supplies, because this can accept either a 9 volt at 2 amp or a 5 volt at 2 amp. So maybe there's additional power supplies you can use to power this up if you don't have the original charger. Now we'll take a look at the controller. Again, a very substantial controller. It falls really well in your hands. It feels very comfortable. Joysticks fall right into your thumbs. On the front, you've got a large display right here that gives you a lot of really good telemetry information about the drone, your battery levels, and all the important features that the drone is going through when it's flying. That's something you don't see in a lot of other controllers. So having that display is a really nice way of getting a quick glance at all the telemetrics you need to understand about the drone. Now the buttons on the bottom of the unit allow you to do a few things. This is the return to home button, so if you want to bring it back home, you'll hold that. It'll beep a couple times. It'll start the return to home procedure. That's the power button. You can turn it on using that. And this is the mode selection button, where you're either flying in normal mode, fast mode, or tripod mode, so you can decide which mode you want to fly in. And again, those modes affect how quickly the drone moves through the air. To put a phone in this unit, you'll slide the drawer down. This is expansive, so it's actually spring-loaded, so you can get a really wide phone in there. It's not quite big enough to actually put a tablet in there, but we're working on a couple of tablet holders. You can certainly use the standard tablet holder that basically is a bracket that comes up on top of the controller to hold your phone, but that tends to be a little bit cumbersome. On the bottom here, you'll also notice there are holders for your joysticks if you decide to take these off. I tend to leave mine in the controller when I'm transporting it, just so I don't lose them when I'm bouncing around inside the case. On the one side, you'll find a micro USB port, and that's used for charging. To fold the antenna up, you'll basically just spin them up like this. You make sure that you point the flat side up and towards your drone. So you want to make sure you definitely have the flat side up like this. I'm laughing because I had it backwards. Have it flat side up like this and facing your drone. You also want to make sure these are parallel to each other. Don't have them wonky like that, because for the best radiation pattern, you want them flat and again parallel with each other. On the top of the unit, you'll find a couple of other buttons up here. That's a function button that can be programmed. camera button if you want to take photos, recording button here to start recording, and this adjusts your gimbal up and down in this direction, so you can adjust the pitch of the gimbal using this control right here. Pretty straightforward from a controller perspective. One other cool feature that I like, and I think they actually came up with this after seeing some of the other controllers, you'll notice a little bit of a plastic edge right there, that little clip, and a little divot right there. And that helps you lock the antennas closed when you close this unit up. You'll hear a click like that. It's important you do that because if you throw this in your bag and these things are wrangling around, they're going to break. So make sure you click that in there and make it tight inside the unit. All right, so now we'll take a look at the drone. And again, I've got it in the open position. To open it, you'll basically fold these arms out away from the drone. So you'll do the top ones first that way and the bottom ones this way. And you want to hang on to those all the way through the travel of the arm. You don't want to let it snap open, even though it's spring loaded, because you can cause cracking down here in the joint if you do that too often. All right, in the bottom of the drone, you'll find a heat sink to dissipate some of the heat that's generated when it's flying. The electronics, when they're working, get warm. That heat sink will radiate that heat out, and when you're flying, the air will carry it away from the drone. There are a couple of sensors down here. You have two infrared sensors that are really time-of-flight sensors that help it maintain its elevation when GPS signals are weak, or maybe you're indoors trying to fly it. Those will help when it gets closer to the ground. You also have a camera in the center, which is interesting, and I'm sure that's used for positioning the drone over the original return to home point, and I'll test that when I fly it. And then there's also an LED down here that's used for sort of that tracking when it's moving through the air. It'll turn that on if it's sort of a dim environment and it can't really see the ground below it to help it locate where it should land. On the one side of the drone, you'll find a micro SD card slot, and you can put a micro SD card slot in there, a card in there, depending on the size you buy. I typically go with a 64 gigabyte card or 256 gigabyte card. I don't go bigger than that because I like to have extra cards with me, and I typically swap those out during the day. On the other side is a vent. Although it looks like you could stick something in there, there's nothing you can put in there. It's just a vent for cooling. The air passes through the front of the unit and out the back. There are vents on both sides as well to sort of keep the unit cool. On the back of the unit, you'll find the battery in the top and a micro USB connection right there. I'm sure you can charge the battery in the unit. I haven't tested that yet, but again, if you don't have the hub, you can charge the battery in the unit, but they give you the hub, so I would always recommend charging the battery outside of the drone. I never like using a drone as sort of a charger to charge my battery because I'm passing electricity through all the circuitry inside to charge that battery, and that's putting fatigue on the electronics inside. Now, there are no sensors on this for crash avoidance. They've got stickers over these two, and there are stickers over the front too. So again, I think they're using some of the molds that are similar between this and the Zino Mini Pro, and they've got stickers over the top of those. So there's no crash avoidance built into that. As far as the unit goes, beyond that, to remove the battery, you'll squeeze these two little pinions back here. They're spring loaded. You'll squeeze those and wiggle the battery out, and it slides out just like that. When you're putting it in, you want to make sure you've got it aligned correctly. Don't have it a little bit twisted or you'll jam it, but just slide it in, push these in and close it, and you'll hear the click, and you'll be all set to fly it. Set it down and you're ready to go. And that's pretty much it for the closer look on the basic technology behind the Zino Mini SE. I hope you enjoyed that closer look. And now I'd like to try to help you decide if the brand new Hubsan Zino Mini SE is the right drone for you. And for comparison purposes, I have three other very popular sub 250 gram drones that are currently on the market. The DJI Mini SE, the Hubsan Zino Mini SE, the DJI Mini 2, and finally the Hubsan Zino Mini Pro. Now in order of pricing, lowest to highest, this is around $299. The base package here is $349, $449, and finally $499. Now, these two are sort of in a different category just based on their price and their feature sets. And honestly, most of the questions I get are asking between the DJI Mini SE and the new Zino Mini SE, is it worth the difference in price? Because there's about a $60 difference between the two. And I would say it is worth the price because there are features in here that aren't on the DJI Mini SE. For example, you get a longer flight time. So I haven't tested it yet, but based on the testing I did with the Zino Mini Pro, I think you're going to get 8, 10, 12 extra minutes of flight time out of a single battery charge. And that's really important if you've got it up in the air. If you're fighting a strong wind, you're going to get a little longer flight out of it, especially if you're trying to get to a target that's pretty far away from you. Having that extra 8 minutes means you're going to get there, have more time on target to shoot the video you want to shoot, so the longer flight time is good. It's got a really strong signal on it. 6 kilometers of distance means I'm going to get great connection when I'm in a really noisy environment from a Wi-Fi perspective. I love the automated features, the fact that I can do a follow me on it. I can't do that here. I love the waypoint feature on it as well. So those things I just mentioned, to me, justify that $60 difference. Now, the set that I unboxed was actually the 2 battery combo. The basic unit only comes with a single battery. It comes with a single charger. It doesn't include the bag. It doesn't include the hub. but for an additional 60 bucks or so, you can move up to the 2-battery combo, which is the one I was showing you, which comes in around $415. Now that's a big difference, $115 difference between the two, and that might seem a little bit pricey until you start thinking about the accessories that are included with that kit. Because when you have the battery at 80 bucks, the bag I think is 20 or 25, the hub is 20 or 25. If you add all that up, the difference in pricing is really a bargain to get that combo unit. I'm always a fan of buying a combo unit if I can, a Fly More combo, to actually include those accessories that you're going to use down the road, because I promise you, when you put the drone up in the air for the first time with a single battery, you're going to love it so much that you're thinking, why do I have to charge the battery? I want to get back up there and fly a little bit more. So you're going to run out and buy a second, maybe even a third battery. If you go with the 2-battery combo, you've got 2 batteries and a hub that you can charge both batteries. So for me, the basic kit, the $299 to $349, certainly worth the extra $50 for the advanced features to me. And I would recommend going with the 2-battery combo, because then you get those accessories built in. You have a really nice bag to carry everything in when you're heading out in the field, and you got a hub to charge those batteries when you're home. Now, I know this is a hard decision for some people, and I'm sure I'm going to get flamed for this, because a lot of this doesn't come down to price or features for some people. There's brand loyalty out there that if you're a DJI fan, nothing I can say about this drone or really any other drone is going to convince you it's the right move for you. But I want to say that I want you to be open to new technologies coming out, because there's a lot of companies that are building drones today that are kind of pushing the envelope. And what Hubsan's done with both of these drones is they've looked at the industry leader who's kind of owned this category since the beginning of time and said, hey, we're here to compete. We're going to build drones that are better in some ways than your drones at a better price, and we're going to really push the envelope as far as innovation in that space. And I'm a huge fan of competition, because it makes everybody get back up, get back to the drawing board, and start pushing the innovation cycle so newer features come out quicker, prices are better, typically in that market space, because there's competition out there. So if you're a DJI fan, and I can't talk you into this, just kind of take a look at it and see if it makes sense for you, because I want to champion companies that are in there challenging the established leaders. And beyond that, that's pretty much all I had for today. Now, if you're interested in this drone, they do sell in a couple of different packages. The base package, again, is $349. I think the additional battery for the battery, the hub and the bag, ups at another $60 or so. But I've got a link below where you can go check all those out. Decide on which package makes sense for you, because they make one with a 3-battery package and a few other things in it. I just think that if you're going to buy it, the combo unit is a better value. And between these two, again, just based on features alone, I'm telling you, that $50 difference is well worth it when you consider the features that are built in. Now, having said that, DJI may come out with a firmware tomorrow that allows you to do waypoints. They may come out with firmware that allows you to do tracking. I can't predict that, but for now, between these two, $60 difference between them, I think it's a pretty good deal. So that's all I had for today. I hope you enjoyed this clip. Please don't flame me. Again, I'm just here to review the drones. I'm not really promoting anybody, but for me as a flyer, and I fly all of them, I like the features that they've built into the brand new Zino Mini SE. So that's just my 2 cents on it. Now, I promise you, I've got a ton more clips coming where I do in-depth reviews and comparisons between these 4 drones to get into the specifications and give you some advice on which may be appropriate for you. But today I was trying to focus on these 2 and just do an overview of that product in particular. Also, we have the 12 Days of Drone Valley Christmas coming up, and if you're a fan of the channel, you know what that's about. We've been doing it for the last 4 or 5 years. We take 12 days and give away some amazing prizes, and we've got really good relationships with manufacturers out there that every year at this time send me a bunch of gear and say, look, we love what you're doing over that 12 Days of Drone Valley Christmas. Here's some free stuff. Give it out to your viewers, and nothing makes me happier than talking about technology, and a vendor send me something to give that back to viewers is just something I love doing every year. So I get real excited around the Christmas time, but we'll have 12 days and I'll be singing and I'll be telling jokes just like I do every year. So make sure you tune in for that. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, I say this every time, what are you waiting for? Hit that icon down there and join the Drone Valley family. We have so much stuff coming up this year. We're going to be doing live broadcasts and all kinds of cool things. You're not going to want to miss those messages and those notifications that we've just posted something cool. And that's pretty much it for today. So thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate the viewership and the subscriptions. And until next time, happy flying.